In a beautiful area of Sweden, 9 people who work together for the government go on a trip to a lodge located in the middle of the forest, where they plan to hold a meeting to discuss an important project. The team, which is part of the municipal office, has already agreed and made an arrangement to use a rural area still full of greenery, where a great mall will be built in that region, followed by the construction of a nice housing complex. The team stops at the future site of the Great Mall on the day before the official start of construction, and Angela, who is the mayor, feels proud of her team, especially Jonas, the project leader, for successfully negotiating with a big brand so that the brand can quickly secure a place in the upcoming mall. Angela also explains that they are here for a professional team development activity, where they will heal while learning how to collaborate more effectively with each other, and this is one of the reasons for their visit. After that, everyone goes to their lodge, and after a short trip, the team finally arrives at the nice lodge located deep in the forest. A hotel manager, accompanied by a tour guide, a guard, and a chef, is responsible for managing the lodge, and each guest pairs up and stays in a cabin after making an agreement. That day, the chef starts to prepare lunch for the guests, but there is no gas in the kitchen, so he decides to leave the house to refill the gas tank. After getting into his car, he turns on the radio and hears that many people oppose the construction of the Great Mall. Suddenly, something hits his car, and when he goes to check it, he finds that a trap has been set on the road. Right at that moment, he hears a sound in the forest and decides to investigate it. When he enters the forest, he realizes that there are several strings stretched from one tree to another. While he checks them, someone sneaks behind him to attack him, and finally, the chef dies. At that moment, the team gathers in a lodge for a meeting to discuss the project. The meeting starts with Angela showing a video advertisement, and there are several points of debate regarding the mission statement and the overall purpose of the ad. There is also an environmental concern that must be considered, since the construction of the Great Mall will cause the clearing of land that was previously used for farming, forests, and other purposes. An old lady strongly expresses her rejection of the plan, but others try to convince her that they all follow environmental regulations. During this time, a woman named Lena feels very shocked when she finds out that the team has already engaged in several questionable activities while she was away, because earlier she took a leave for health concerns. The famous farmland owned by a hardworking farmer named Pal Sun and his family is destroyed to make space for the Great Mall, and apparently, the Pal Sun family receives no compensation at all. What is even stranger is that it seems that Lena signs those documents, but she says she does not remember ever doing so. As a result, she strongly opposes the destructive actions they take, which makes Jonas upset and eventually causes a conflict between them. They finally take a break for lunch, but since the chef is dead, the only food they can eat is meat sandwiches, and they become disappointed. Not long after that, Jonas takes Lena away and confronts her with the question of why she opposes him in front of everyone. And Lena says that her signature is forged by someone else because she would never approve such an agreement. So Jonas tries to use his influence on Lena by saying that she must have forgotten signing the documents because she is under a lot of pressure lately. Meanwhile, a woman named Nadia insists that the numbers do not match and demands that the budget be reviewed carefully, but Angela tells Nadia to stop talking about the issue to prevent arguments at work. In another part of the lodge, the guard relaxes while drinking something nice, but then suddenly his chest is stabbed through by a sharp object by someone, and finally, the guard dies. At that moment, a man in a funny costume enters while everyone is still arguing, and he tries to lighten the mood by entertaining them. However, the employees continue to argue with each other. The man in the funny costume turns out to be Jonas, who becomes angry, and because of this, he rushes out of the place. Soon after that, Angela goes to comfort him, and while she is there, Jonas shares with her about many things that make him upset. So Angela assures Jonas that he is a great person as the project leader. Then she gives him a golden shovel and tells him that he will officially open the construction site the next day. After some time passes, the guide gathers everyone and invites them to heal, but their phones are taken so they can relax and enjoy the time without distractions. During this time, Lena confides in her friend, Alex, that someone must have forged her signature, and Lena suggests that Alex talk to Pal's son, whose house was demolished, and given compensation for his loss. But Alex tells Lena that Pal's son already did something unthinkable after his house was demolished, so it is not possible to do that anymore. After that, the team participates in a fun activity that is already planned for them, where they're divided into 2 separate groups. Whoever builds a raft that can cross the river first will win, so they start building boats out of plastic, and finally, Jonas's team wins. Meanwhile, the killer who roams the area takes away the box containing the guest phones. It turns out he really likes Jonas's costume head, and he finally becomes a psychopath. At that time, the manager feels annoyed because 2 of his employees are missing, and he has a lot of work to do. But while he looks for them, suddenly the psychopath appears in front of him wearing the terrifying head and starts attacking him. The manager tries hard to escape, but the psychopath manages to knock him down, and finally, the manager dies. At the same time, the team arrives for another fun activity, which is using a zip line to cross the lake. Lena cannot take part in the potentially dangerous activity because she still feels insecure about her health, even though the guide urges her to do it. When Jonas sees this, he says that Lena has no courage, and his best friend agrees by acting like a crowing chicken. And finally, Lena is mocked. As a result, she becomes upset, so she announces that she can no longer handle this and then returns to the lodge. After some time passes, she quietly enters Jonas's room while her coworkers are still doing the zipline activity. After that, Lena hacks Jonas's laptop and quickly finds out that the person in charge of the project has already been involved in various acts of fraud. According to the documents, the big brands and businesses that Jonas claims he is already invited to the Great Mall never agree to such deals, even though he himself claims that he has already done it. Before leaving, Lena saves copies of all this sensitive information on a flash drive. After some time passes, the psychopath starts preparing for a massive attack by setting several traps throughout the forest. During this time, the guide finds that the guest phones have been taken, but she tells everyone not to worry and to keep having fun. She starts looking for her coworkers at night to ask about the guest phones, but she cannot find them. While she searches, she finds a manager's body that has already died, and suddenly, the psychopath comes to attack her. Unfortunately, despite the guide's best effort, she cannot escape the same fate as the others, and finally, she dies. Meanwhile, the team takes time to relax by gathering together for a party in the hot spring pool. A few moments later, Lena arrives and immediately invites her trusted friends Nadia and Alex into a room to discuss. Lena explains to them that they cannot continue the project because it will cause financial trouble for everyone involved. She also says that no one, not even the Great Brand, shows any interest in opening a store in the Great Mall, despite what Jonas says. After the Great Mall opens, everyone will be blamed for the huge loss because no big brand or other business will come, while Jonas will work in another company where he will receive a much higher salary since he has already signed contract with them. After that, Lena goes out and tells Jonas's best friend about the plan Jonas has made. And after hearing this, he responds calmly by saying that he wants to talk to Lena in private and then invites her to his room. Jonas makes a reckless decision by giving Lena an important offer as a reward if she agrees to stay silent, a position in a much better company. Lena refuses Jonas's offers, even though he has already convinced her that she is more talented than anyone else. She then confronts Jonas with the flash drive and warns him that if he does not leave the project, she will hand him over to the authorities. Meanwhile, Mrs. Olivia and Jonas's best friend are still in the common area, while the others have already returned to their rooms. Suddenly, the psychopath appears, and the best friend suspects that it is Jonas because of the mask he wears. But his assumption is wrong, so the psychopath brutally cuts his best friend with a sharp cutting tool, and finally, he dies. Mrs. Olivia, who feels terrified by what she has just seen, runs away from the scene before the psychopath can chase her. Not long after, Angela leaves her room to look for the lodge staff because she is hungry, but she realizes that there is no one in the reception area. She finally walks into a room covered in blood and finds several teeth inside it, which makes her panic and confused about what is happening until the psychopath comes and attacks her. When he finally catches Angela, the psychopath ties her neck to a flagpole to lift her all the way up, and finally, she dies. As a result, the others in the area run outside after hearing Angela scream. Then they see the psychopath approaching, and panic breaks out in the lodge as the greedy property players become terrified. Jonas and Lena run toward the forest when suddenly Jonas gets caught by a sharp wire, causing the skin on his forehead to tear open. Lena comes to help him until both of them manage to escape from the area. But they still panic when they remember the raft they built earlier and decide to use it to escape. However, after Jonas paddles a raft for a while, he suddenly changes his mind. He warns Lena that if she does not give the flash drive to him, he will not allow her to stay on the raft. Having no other choice, Lena reluctantly gives the flash drive to Jonas. But right after she does so, Jonas betrays her by kicking her, and finally, Lena falls into the water. However, she still manages to survive. So after that, she runs back into the forest, but this time she trips and falls into a hole, where she finds the chef's corpse. Meanwhile, the remaining team members lock themselves inside a room to protect themselves from the psychopath. They conclude that they must face the psychopath together and start preparing weapons. But Alex begins to worry about Lena, because deep down, he actually has feelings for her. So Alex decides to look for her alone. He enters the forest with a flashlight and quickly starts calling Lena's name, while the psychopath is still in the forest and can hear him. However, Lena finds Alex first and covers his mouth before the psychopath can find him. In another location, Nadia searches for the car keys so the group can escape quickly. She succeeds in finding them, but suddenly the psychopath appears and attacks her. Nadia manages to dodge and tells her friends that she has the car keys, but the psychopath burns the car before they can get in, and finally, the car is destroyed. They're just about to leave when they hear noises coming from the back door and feel that someone is approaching to open it. But it turns out to be Lena and Alex coming out of the forest alive. Meanwhile, Mrs. Olivia comes out of her hiding place and finds Jonas, who is in pain. They quietly enter a room where Mrs. Olivia treats his wounds by stitching them. She talks to Jonas at the same time, hinting that she might be the cause of the chaos that is happening. Since Jonas is confused, Mrs. Olivia explains to him that their former co-worker, who once worked in the environmental office, named Franz, might be the psychopath. He fully understands that the Great Mall will harm the community, and as a result, he takes a stance against the proposed construction. Mrs. Olivia also reveals that she has already told Franz about their visit to the lodge before they arrive there. And when Jonas hears this, he becomes angry and rushes out, immediately followed by Mrs. Olivia. After that, Jonas rides a vehicle like a motorbike of his own will, so Mrs. Olivia begs him to take her when the psychopath arrives, but Jonas refuses and leaves her lying on the ground. And finally, she is left behind. Mrs. Olivia thinks that Franz is the one who will attack, so she tries to reason with him as the psychopath gets closer. She insists that she has done everything she can to stop them from continuing the project, but they do not want to listen to her arguments. She then removes the mask from the psychopath's face, but it turns out that the man behind the mask is not Franz, but someone else. At that moment, the psychopath stabs her head with a sharp object, and finally, Mrs. Olivia will die. At the same time, Jonas tries to escape on his motorcycle, but he does not realize that the psychopath has also set traps on the road. As a result, Jonas loses his balance, and finally, the crazy man falls into the river. At that time, Alex finds a newspaper article in the lodge about Paulson's death after his house is demolished. The article states that Paul's son does something unthinkable. As a result, his son becomes terrified when he finds that his father has already died in the barn, and finally, the son feels completely devastated. After that, he makes a public statement that he will fight for farmers' rights, and his interview with the newspaper is also published. The team strongly suspects that Paulson's son is the psychopath who wants revenge for his father. The team then agrees with Lena's suggestion that they must use the zip line to cross the lake, and they continue their journey into the forest to reach the zip line location. However, they then come face to face with a psychopath, which causes them to become separated. Nadia does not succeed in her attempt to escape from the bear trap, but she manages to stab the psychopath's eye. This does not stop him, but it gives Nadia time to escape. After some time, Alex and Lena manage to reach the zip line. Together, they set off from one end of the line, but when they reach the middle part, Alex realizes that the other side of the zip line has already been rigged by Mrs. Olivia. So he switches sides and decides to sacrifice his life to save Lena, the one he loves, and finally, Alex dies. As for Lena, she remains safe without injury, luckily just a few millimeters away from Mrs. Olivia's spikes. She then sits down against a tree, feeling guilty about what she has done, until she is startled when she hears a phone ringing and searches for the source. It turns out to be the place where the psychopath has left the box containing the guest phones. After hearing this, she quickly takes out her phone and calls the authorities. Back at the lodge, where an old man named Mr. John and the old woman, Emma, quickly return to a cabin to hide from the psychopath. But in the end, the psychopath finds Mr. John and Emma, so the two of them decide to gather courage to face him. Mr. John arrives just in time to stop the psychopath from killing Emma, followed by Mr. John burning the mask the psychopath wears. So the psychopath quickly plunges his mask into the water and then returns to finish off the greedy property people. However, suddenly, Nadia appears at that same moment, Then she slashes the psychopath's head with the sharp edge of a shovel. And finally, he dies, with his head cut off. Meanwhile, Lena notices the arrival of police cars some time later, which motivates her to try to approach them. But at that same moment, Jonas suddenly appears out of nowhere and attacks her. He believes that Lena is responsible for ruining his life and does not hesitate to take her life to make sure she cannot expose information that could be used against him. Lena is put in a position where she has no choice but to fight Jonas brutally, so she tears open the skin from his forehead wound, and finally, the crazy man dies. After the incident, the lodge was quickly surrounded by emergency vehicles such as ambulances and police cars. The conference movie ends with Lena returning to the lodge, and she and her friends who survived manage to get through the ordeal with their lives spared. In the end, Lena finds that the psychopath's head has already been cut off. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notification so you don't miss the latest recaps.